Good morning, everyone. Enjoy the hospitality while we get set up. We're going to try to get everybody down at this end because we have people on the Zoom session who need to be seen and heard and see you. And of course, I'm recording this so that we can share it with other people in the parish who have not been able to attend these meetings. So when you're ready, just come on down here. Try to make room for everybody. I'm going to be moving the camera around as each person speaks or contributes so that we have a really good record of all of this. Nancy, can you kind of turn the laptop around so that Bruce Mavick gets a good view of everybody? All right, Kitty, the show is yours.
Is there anyone else who would like a clipboard and the questions?
Anybody else?
Anybody?
We've got books that, I've got separate papers if you just want to take one of the books that's, underneath the table, you can write on it.
I'm going to suggest that for the benefit of Bruce Mavick, who's also a member of the search committee, and everybody else, when you speak, two things. Keep your voice up, use your big person's voice so that everybody can hear you. And number two, please don't try to talk over somebody who's already talking, okay? Raise your hand or do something so that we can have a good sequenced and a good recording and a good conversation among all of us today, okay?
Yes.
It's all yours, Kitty.
We do a couple more down here, though, for Randy and... Okay, everybody, thank you. This is the best turnout I've had yet, so I'm really, really excited. And even if you don't want to say anything, there's a huge benefit in listening to your fellow parishioners. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you, Lucy. You had a great picture, by the way. And
Oh, thank you.
For the players. Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, these are the three basic questions that have been given to us, and I think they're good ones. And you can express the positive, maybe not the negative, but the last one is the one I'm sure you'll all be concerned about. I'm going to try, mind your waivers, sorry. Take notes as you go along and answer. If you could just raise your hand one at a time if you have something to say, that would be helpful. So, we'll start off. What are the best things about St. Christopher's? Don't be bashful. This is your time.
Kathy.
The people.
Okay. And where's Kathy?
Right there.
Here. The people, but we are a very kind, loving community. Mm-hmm. And to me, that is so special.
I agree.
Anybody else contributing here?
John, Lucy.
Oh, Lucy.
Oh,
me.
Lucy Lytle.
Big girl voice.
All right, big girl voice.
I said the variety of programs and opportunities to serve that we offer. I mean, there are a lot of different ways to get involved in the life of the church here, and I think that's a real strength.
Yeah, and you're involved in almost all of them.
Right. But
Which is good.
Becky's the one that gets the Eagle Scout badge.
I don't know, between the two of you.
Haley.
The love and the welcome of the people for each other, for people who are not part of our community, and for God.
Good, good. Anyone else? Oh, Dale. Dale, go.
Welcoming congregation.
It is. It is. Ron?
Well, I agree with all of those things and have reference to that, but also the fact that just St. Christopher's facility is a beautiful setting and beautiful place.
It's a very comfortable place.
Yeah.
Good place to worship and a good place to gather. Anyone else? Kathy again.
Yeah, I just thought thought of something, John, and this is a tribute to all of you who are on the committee. I mean, you would never know that we didn't have a rector right now, because the church has been humming along, but it's thanks to you, thanks to Kitty, and thanks to everyone in the room and not in the room who contributes their love and skills for the church to help it continue on.
Thank you, Kathy. You know, I've been your senior warden a bunch of times, and senior wardens, the junior warden and the senior warden, meet every week, once a week, with the then rector. And over the years, with Conrad Selnick first and then with Ann Kidder second, you know, I saw a lot of their time, a lot of time. But it was not until this transition began where without a rector, I had to perform not only the senior warden role, but the role of the rector. And I can tell you, it has been an eye-opening experience for me, because what I have learned is that so many of us as the parishioners are doing the work of this parish.
Yes.
It's unbelievable how much work is involved, how much work is required, all the hours that the rector spends, I now spend, and it's just a tribute to this group of people, all of you people, in my opinion, because, yeah, the first thing about this question, yeah, it's the people here. And this is a really good group of people who all do so much. It takes everybody to keep this place going, and it's a lot of duties and a lot of responsibilities. So, yes, Eric.
And one thing I've noticed is not only is our beautiful community, but also that we have a great love and respect for our Anglican traditions. And that it shows through with our common interest in each other as communicants and family, but also as to what we do with that going forth into the world.
I think that's a good point.
And we have
You know,
a great-
remember the three-legged stool that
Yes.
Richard Hooker taught us about 400 years ago?
And that we are a middle ground.
Middle ground
not
between
too
both.
high, not too low, not too, you know.
And our three-legged stool is scripture, tradition, and reason,
He's
right?
right.
And we do that in this church. We do. You listen to our sermons from Father Richard. I mean, they're great teachings. They really are. They're great teachings. They're based on the scriptural readings. That's why they're a homily and not a sermon. But, you know, it really is informative. And every week I learn something. Don't you?
Yes, absolutely.
I learned something. Yes, Leslie.
John, can I speak for somebody? I've had a couple of phone conversations with a member of the church who can't come anymore. And so since she saw my name on the search committee, so she's called me a few times. And so we went through the list together. And one of the things that she pointed out was she thought it was wonderful that a church as small as we are does the outreach. And she mentioned specifically the Lutheran Men's Shelter.
Yes.
And how important it is for people to be able to have the opportunity to give back to an outside organization.
Remember the diocese.
Yes, it was.
Okay, I was gonna take this to her today,
Don't-
because
we're all
I
set.
didn't know. Thank you
We've
very
had two
much.
conversations, so thank you. Thank you, Linda.
Remember that the deacons in the Anglican Church belong to the bishop and not to any parish. And years ago, when Mark Hollingsworth was our bishop, Ann Kidder and I think Becky also, met with the bishop several times, basically to implore him to give us a deacon. And he did. And she serves at the control of Ann Jolly now, and she has been, I think we would all say, a magnificent addition to this parish, to have her with us. And she, of course, has brought us the Lutheran Men's Shelter and done so much to help us in so many ways. She's a constant reminder of our duty as Christians to help others, because she's a sterling, I think, an absolutely sterling example of that. Linda.
I would add to, Lydia was on my list, thank you. I would add to that 2 other programs, the Bargain Box, the Commitment and the Strength. volunteering and its presence in the community and all the recipients of it. That's wonderful. And also Yuri and the choir coming back and now just beginning to start. It's amazing that you have such a beautiful, wonderful organist, beautiful choir, and beautiful music.
Right.
She's been here 30 years now.
Wow.
I mean, talk about loyalty.
And she is so good at what she does.
And it's really fun, and we have parties all the time. You don't have to be able to sing. Join us. I can't even read music, and they put up with me.
Good. Anything else on this first question that we should add?
This is wonderful. Great input. I love it.
This is what we need. This is what we all need to think about. Okay, Kitty, what's number 2?
What are the challenges St. Christopher's faces?
That's a good question.
So it can be something little.
Kathy Vilas.
Finding new parishioners. Since
Yes.
some of us are aging here, not all of us, but some of us are aging, I think it's so important to try and bring younger people in and younger families. And I don't know how we do that. It's always been a problem. So as far as long as I've been involved with the church, and I don't know how we do that.
You know, Kathy, one suggestion I had from somebody was, please get a young new family in the
Right.
rectory with
Right.
children.
Right.
And I thought, okay,
Yeah.
you know, that's a real challenge. I mean, that would be wonderful. That would be ideal, but I'm not sure that we can. I really want to get somebody that really wants to be here, and you know, some rectors want a big congregation, some want a little. You know, we just have to find that right person. But we will. It may take a little while. I will tell you, there is a shortage of ministers out there. So that might be time limiting, you know, it just, we have to pay attention, but we will. Believe me, we're trying hard right now, so, but,
And we've spent a lot of money, as everybody knows, on the rectory. And it really looks really nice now. If you haven't been in there yet, we'll have tours. We're in a generational change in this denomination, in the Episcopal Church, where we've seen a lot of people retire during this cycle. There are young people out there. There are young candidates out there. And our bishop and our canon know that we would love to have a family. We would love to have young people. And I think a rector that had those credentials would certainly help us find new, younger members. But does anybody here, and this is the point of this conversation, does anybody here have any suggestions about how to get new parishioners? Dale?
I think we might want to look at our evangelical, especially brethren and brothers and sisters. There's a lot of programs out there specifically to target these type of things for both the parishioners and clergy.
Can you send us a list? Can you send us a resource? What do you think?
Well, if one looks on the internet, I suppose they could find a lot.
Okay.
I'll try, but I can't guarantee it. I have other things on my plate right now.
Well, we know the diocese is big into this, and you know the Congress, the congressional, the diocesan, what's the name of it, class? The College of Development.
Congregational development.
Yeah.
Congregation, yeah.
College of Congregational Development.
Bingo.
Yeah, maybe we should have some participants in that regime, in that program, and then be educated and come back and tell the rest of us good ideas and good suggestions. I know that Jesse Dodson would be pleased if we would do that. Any other ideas? I'm curious. Haley?
So when we were looking for a church, we were looking for a church that had a program for kids. And at the time, we had more than 0.
Yeah.
I went to another church and I said, what kind of programming do you have for children? They said, we don't have any children.
Yeah.
We're looking for something that that is inclusive of our working schedule. Because if the women's Bible study is at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, you're
That's
looking
not
at a
gonna
certain
happen.
group
Yep.
of people, and you're excluding a certain group of people. We were looking for diversity in our church, people from different backgrounds, different socioeconomic backgrounds, racial backgrounds, cultural backgrounds. We were looking for a good location, a strong worship life. I would say those would be the main things that we were looking for as a middle-aged couple with a kid trying to find a church home. And so, the other thing, we're looking for someone that the other diversity would be LGBTQ people, and it's helpful to have a statement of welcoming, and this church didn't, but we've always been welcomed. But those would be the things that when I was looking for a church,
Sure.
that would have drawn me towards a church or made me move away. And I wouldn't say that this church had everything I was looking for, but the balance certainly was that this was the place that we settled.
Good. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
How did you find us? By word of mouth, internet
Well,
search?
we live a mile and a half away.
So you're close by.
Right, so it was here or St. Bartholomew.
Right.
And we attended church at both, and the community here was what kind of decided us between those two locations.
How? In what way?
It was when, I don't think we went to any programs at St. Bartholomew, but when we attended church at each church, it was more vibrant. It was more, when we talked, are we a church, and when we talked with Jesse Dodson, right?
Yes.
Are we a church in decline? Where are we? And we're kind of in this equilibrium period. And even though it may not be, we're in this period, I didn't have the feeling that we were in the decline period at this church. And so that vibrancy during worship, that, bold welcome, that was what kind of decided us between the two congregations.
Very good. Thank you.
Let me add to that just a little bit.
Fran?
I've been here
Oh, sorry.
can I do that?
Yeah, you go first and we'll do Fran next, okay? Is that all right?
And this is probably a good thing, not a challenge, but I've been here over 50 years now. I've been here through a lot of different rectors, some popular, some not quite so popular. I have never seen a cohesiveness like this ever since I've been here. I mean, I have to say, Ann had a lot. Do you feel that way, Fran? You've been here a few years too, right? I mean, it is just and right now where we are, I've asked certain people to help me with this, that, and the other. Everybody just jumps right in. I mean, that's an incredible feeling when you're trying to pull something together. Oh, sure, I'll do that. Yeah, what can I do? And that alone is rich.
No, I agree. I
I
was gonna tell a
you-
story about, but after you were
Oh,
done,
no,
I was
no,
just gonna-
that's really all I had to say. I just remember the spirit that is going on in this place right now. I can't explain it. I think you know who up there.
Is keeping us together. Yes, I
Yeah,
agree.
It is just,
I was just
Fran?
gonna ask, is it presumptuous to, solicit newcomers? I have a couple of, most of the families in my area, most of the older ones are gone, but there's younger families, and they have young children. And, I mean, I'd like to say, why don't you come and join us? But I don't know, is that correct to do?
Yes, it is the correct thing to do.
any of you think somebody might be interested, or maybe you had a good friend for years and say, just try this. Maybe it won't work, but just try it. Oh,
As Christ said, be a fisher of men
right.
and women and children
Especially children.
or anything else out there.
Right.
Well, my neighborhood is just all of a sudden, like in the last few years, has just become a young neighborhood. We have a lot of young families. Some of them
Turnover.
I don't know. I mean, I never will, but some of them, like my
Fran, you
next
could
door
be
neighbor.
such an important link. I mean,
And they have
so
3
important.
boys, and my neighbor up the street, they have 3 children. Every 2 years she has a baby, so.
That's who we need. That's who we need.
I don't know anybody like that.
You know, and they're nice families too. And I wouldn't approach people that I don't know, you know. But,
But Fran, the people that you do know, and this applies to all of us, obviously, we need to encourage the people that we know if we have any indication or sense that they are seeking something more than themselves. A spirituality, a religion, whatever. Offer them here. Offer them, bring them here. I hope they like us. I hope they like what we say and do and how we worship. But if they don't, they're still welcome to come. You're always welcome. Rich, go ahead.
From personal experience and, just with young children and children in sports on Sundays, and I'm just thinking of, Matt and a couple of other younger families, I'll tell you, they probably feel like they can't come back in a way, like not ashamed, but it's a hard push to come back after you've been here and you stop for a few weeks, months, whatever it might be. One thing that helped us is people from this parish would come and they'd bring us flowers or just a simple phone call, right? So those things made me feel, again, all right, let's get back into this, because we were in a rut, it might have been COVID or winter time and you're just not leaving with the young kids, right? But people would call. People brought us flowers when I lived in Lyndhurst, so that. Secondly, though, we moved to Sugar and Falls, and our youngest daughter Lucy, will be going to preschool next year. So again, they have a little bit of an advantage, right? They want us to attend church. They want us to do all that. So not that we're doing that, right? But just how some churches do it, they do have pre-K in there, and then you get to know everybody that way. So that's not a way to do it, but a church does do that. I do think a program, I know we were talking about it with Mother Ann, can't think of the name, Play.
Godly play.
Yep, exactly. I do think that would be beneficial, something that we can shoot for a 3-year goal or something, to have somebody do that. Maybe the next rector, that would be one of their goals. But that would be, I think that, again, just to get the young kids in. My kids love coming to church. They ask every Sunday if we're going to church.
Oh, I love to hear that.
And they really just enjoy it. But again, it's a choice, though, right? There's sports coming up and things like that. It is a choice. So that's where it's tough with the young people now, I think, in my opinion. But as far as the other families we had, I don't know if we're still reaching out. Mother Ann was just so good about it.
Yeah.
She was just wonderful about the phone calls or flowers or whatever it might have been.
And Rich, she's a real role model. She had one day, and it was a weekday, and she has young mothers and some of their kids to meet at a playground. Okay, I don't know where it was, and they all packed lunches, and she said we had the best time, and the kids really got to know each other. I don't know who it was, I don't know how many were there, but sometimes you have to go sort of that social route a little bit, or however you can reach the families, and that was sort of a key. It was really, really, really nice. So
Yeah, I think the younger generation, though, is looking for a push. So definitely, if
I
you see them in your
definitely
neighborhood or
agree.
something, just to say it or bring it up. I came from, I was telling Larry, I came from mostly a Jewish community, but buddy called me and he's like, "What are you doing today?" I was like, "Oh, on my way to church," and it just sparked a conversation. Not that he'd be coming to church, he's Jewish denomination, but but again, it's just saying what you're doing on a Sunday helps sometimes too, just spark the conversation. So
yeah, thank you. Oh.
Can I see if
Anything else, Kitty, that you want to
Well,
draw
no,
out on that topic?
Well, this one
Oh,
always.
we got Linda. Linda just raised her
It's a
hand.
exciting topic, but I think it's worth a mention. Costs are going up. I see coming back as a returning member, the volume of paper that's coming out for directory, even the flower mailing. Can we work a little bit to leverage technology for those who are tech-enabled or are willing to be, so that others could get a shorter list of people on which you have to spend printing and postage?
I agree completely.
And it would help when, between between years when directories are issued, if new members come in and they want to find out, well, how do I contact that fellow I just was talking with on a Sunday? If they could have an electronic
Yes, I
version
can.
of
Could you
the
tip the
directory.
screen just a bit that way? 'Cause yeah, we
Well, let me tell you what we're doing, what the vestry is doing with the development of the next directory. Two things. That will be put together probably at about the time the new rector appears. Because the new rector will need to have a good directory that's up to date to learn the names and the stories of everybody. It will also be an online by password only directory so that all of us can access it online when we want to. And lastly, it will have pictures. It will be a picture directory. So you can say, I know that person, but I'm not sure of their name and I don't want to ask the third time. Okay?
One of those years ago, there was.
You know?
Yeah, we did. We had to go off-site to have the pictures taken. It was sort of a nightmare. But
We plan to do that by taking pictures of all of us, probably in this room as a starter. You know, I'll have the camera set up and we'll just take pictures every Sunday for everybody who hasn't yet had their picture taken. But the system that we're going to be using, we can just send us the photo of you and your family that you like the most, and that's what'll go in. Okay?
We could do house calls with a cell phone.
Yeah, we could, the technology is so easy now.
I'd rather surprise people in public, you know, just like jump out from the voice, Fran! I like surprises.
that's so true.
This is why I'm not in charge of the directory.
That's how you got out of it.
Yeah.
So a new parish directory is in the works.
I thought about that.
Okay? Look for it probably, you know, I would say September, October. But I've been dealing with Mary Zupp about that, and we already have the technology. It's just a matter of starting to do it. Okay? Any other questions or comments? Professor, you're sitting back there. You usually have something.
Well, have we gotten to the third question
No,
yet?
we'll get there, as long as you're up.
There are two things I'd like to see in a new rector. One, I'd like to see someone who's willing to get to know us before imposing changes.
Yes.
Change is inevitable and it's necessary. But especially since we have not had an interim whose job it is to prepare us for changes, I would like to see someone who's willing to understand where we are, how we got here, and why we're here before imposing those changes. And the second thing I'd like is someone who's willing to live in the rectory. When we called Conrad Selnick, I was tangentially involved in that search. We were told that it would be difficult to find anyone who was willing to live in the rectory because they wanted to build equity in a home for their retirement. That makes sense, but it's an issue that can be solved through financial salary negotiations at the time of hiring. There's another issue, and that is availability. I want someone who is there, not an hour and a half drive away. Being there is an issue of comfort, and as I creep up on 80, that counts for me. But it's also an issue of commitment and devotion to the parish, that a person called as rector, whomever it is, would be willing to be that available to us when needed.
It's a very good point. Very good point. Yeah, we've just spent $100,000 to fix up the rectory, and it does look great. A few last things to do, and it will be a very, very livable, very, very nice home for someone. I hope and pray, sincerely pray, that the next rector will be a person who will want to live in that home. If not, we're going to rent it out as we did before when Conrad was here. And as Randy said, you know, people who have a home, and his home was in Ashtabula, he did not want to give up that home because that was his retirement account, basically. You're paying the mortgage and, you know, you're going to have a paid off house, which is worth a lot of money. And so it's understandable that he was not willing to live in the rectory.
Well, housing
For Mother Ann,
allowance-
it was perfect.
Housing allowance is a common element of compensation.
Correct.
But adjusting that one way or another so that they can somehow be building equity at a house other than the rectory
Yeah.
solves that part of the problem.
And that is something that will be negotiable with the candidates. Yeah, certainly. Yes.
If I could just piggyback on that, I think, confession time, I think I was the nightmare parishioner that said to Kitty early on in the search, I really want a young family, and I want them to live in the, and this is my dream. Because my memories of St. Christopher go back all the way to Bill Shively. I want a family that would live in the, now I realize this is crazy. I want a family that will live in the rectory, send their kids to Gates Mills Elementary. But whether or not it's a young family, what I really strongly feel, and I say this as someone who has lived in the village and is very tied into the village for most of my life, I want someone who, in addition to serving the parish, is going to enter into the life of this village. Because that is going to be one of our strongest recruiting tools.
Absolutely
I absolutely
true.
promise you. We have a number of organizations in this village. Everything from the Garden Club to the Historical Society, the Improvement Society, Friends of the Gates Mills Library, Land Conservancy, whatever. I can get that person connected with good people at any one of those organizations. But if we have someone in the village who's the rector, that they don't just see giving the blessing at the 4th of July or maybe at the bonfire at Christmas, but who actually is known to the residents of this village, I guarantee you we will attract people from the surrounding area to this church because they have a relationship with our rector and his or her family. And I really feel strongly about that.
And I agree with that completely because I grew up here too.
Yeah.
And Bill Shively was my priest. And I went to school with his son in Gates Mills Elementary
Right,
and then at
right.
Hawken. And he was so deeply involved in this village. And that's probably the best recruiting system we could get.
Yeah.
Is to get somebody with a kid that goes to Gates Mills Elementary, as I did,
Right.
and then all of a sudden, you know, they're in the
And
Boy
he's part of the
Scouts, they're in the
community.
Girl Scouts, they're in this, they're in that, they're in this, and they're in that.
Right, I agree.
I want
Yeah.
to piggyback on that. They're not only involved in the church, they're making a new life for themselves.
Yes.
They're going to be meeting lots of different people, different experiences. Hopefully it would all be positive, but you know, they'll feel really part of the community, not just, okay, I'm a rector at a church.
Right, who happens to live in this village. I am a
exactly.
villager,
Yeah,
and there's
no.
a difference.
You know how long Shively was here?
Oh, yeah?
Like 30 years.
Yeah.
One more piggyback here.
He had deep roots.
Yeah.
It's going to take somebody that has a tremendous amount of energy.
Mm-hmm.
We have seen Bishop Ann Jolly and we've seen Jessie Dodson, and if you can find two other gals in the church that have more energy than they do. One of my cohorts wanted Jessie to come. I said, I don't think you take somebody from Church House. I don't think that's not a good idea, you know. But if we have somebody, whoever it is, that has that energy and that, oh sure, I want to go meet them, or let's go do that, or you know, that's what we need.
Yeah.
You know, and there are people out there. There just have to be.
Yeah.
So we're digging.
It's your job to find them for us.
Oh, thank you. But wait a minute. The nights I've gone to sleep, I think, uh-oh, what have I got myself into? You know, I think, you know what? You have a committee, too. And
Yeah.
not only committee, I have all of you.
It's all of our jobs.
It's all of you. And I think you take that ownership very seriously. I really do, and I'm so grateful. Because
That's why we're here.
people are doing jobs around here now, and maybe it's because Ann is left, but, and I know they're thinking, I don't know if I can do that or not, you know, I don't know, but you're trying. I mean,
You see that man over there?
the baker,
He's the baker, the painter, the fixer, the
Oh, yeah.
handyman,
Next
the
door.
mulch spreader.
He's a fairly decent maraca player.
He's doing everything.
And he's Satan's too.
And over there is Gail, his wife, who, by the way,
Who has to put
does,
up with?
does a lot of the grocery shopping, you told me, and you help out. And she said, I just help serve, and I said, that's okay.
There's no
I mean,
just.
I know that's important. Yes, there is no just, you're right. But
Yeah,
just
there is no
understand,
just.
This community is something very special. It really, really is, and I don't think I'd be here doing this if it wasn't, so.
Any other
Yeah,
thoughts and
thoughts.
voices on who we want as a next rector person? What are we not thinking of? Leslie?
Can I also just, again, following on what Marilyn told me, and I hadn't thought about this, so somebody who could no longer come to church, it's really important to them that we find somebody who's willing to go out to them, and that part of their church life
Yeah.
is really important, and that's their connection to us, and they want to maintain that connection. And, because we do have we're all getting older every day, and so we want to keep those people close to us, but we need someone to be able to go out.
And Mother Ann was very good about that. She was really dedicated to pastoral care.
Pastoral care is very important, right?
It's a big job. It's bigger than you think. For instance, you could have all these pastoral care, and all of a sudden you got 2 funerals in 1 week. Okay,
Right.
so then where are you? You have to do that. So how do you tell these other people I can't be there, or?
Yeah.
It's not as cushy as it seems. It just isn't. And there are times you're on overload. I remember going to Ann a couple times and saying, "You look a little tired today. You okay?" And she'd say, "I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm a little tired." But she never complained that I saw. Maybe you did, but
That's what I have learned during this transition, is how much work truly is involved in being a rector.
yeah.
It's a lot of work. Neil, what were you going to add?
Just a little bit more about pastoral care, because I felt that it was a little bit weak when Mother Ann was here. And that's from personal experience,
Okay.
other people too. So I think we need somebody that's more open to.
Okay, so that's high on the list.
I'm glad you said that, because I have no personal experience, but I just will say that I have heard from a couple of different parishioners that they did not always have a great experience
Okay.
with that. And so that if I had to pick a word, I would have said that our pastoral care was uneven. For some individuals, it was outstanding, and for some people, it was not. And I don't know if their need was not recognized or if there were other factors involved, but I want to just legitimize what you're saying, because I have heard it from others.
And I know for some
Yep,
people,
Barbara,
she
go.
was very into pastoral.
Well, I got to know Mother Ann, and she had talked to her about the funeral maybe coming up not too long from now. And she said, well, I'll come to your house. And she said, I'll help you arrange it.
That's
Things
nice.
like that. And she was always very, very friendly. Nice.
Kathy?
Pastoral care was very difficult for me, and I'll share my experience. In August of 2019, on a Saturday, I fell and broke my pelvic bone in 3 spots. And the surgeon came in and said, the good news is no surgery, the bad news is no surgery. And he said it's going to be a very long, slow, painful process, and he wasn't kidding. So was in Hillcrest for a few days, then transferred to the Cleveland Clinic Rehab Hospital on South Woodland for 3 weeks, then the Wiles for 12 weeks, then Cleveland Clinic Home Health Care for 5 weeks. In that period of time, Ann came the Sunday after I took the fall with flowers from the church, and then the next time I heard from her was at Christmas time with 1 phone call. And I was just kind of puzzled. And I thought, gee, it's pointed out it was a little bit uneven, because sometimes, when people were announcing birthdays or anniversaries, and somebody'd say, oh, so-and-so's going into the hospital, and she'd say, well, call me and I'll come and sit with you. And I thought, oh my goodness, it's just a little awkward. And I did not realize how important the pastoral care was until 2 years after that, I was diagnosed with my 4th cancer, and at Hillcrest once again. And just to give you a little background information, I was a volunteer there for 15 years prior to COVID. And who shows up on the day of my surgery but the chaplain, who's the rabbi, Rabbi Susan Stone, and she is the most wonderful lady. She's in pre-op with me. And then for all of my doctor's meetings for the next couple of months, we'd walk into the waiting room and Susan's there. And not to the doctor's office, but just to say a little prayer and wish me well. And it was so comforting. It was so comforting. And I thought, that to me is really, I would think that just kind of went with the territory and wouldn't need to be a quality that we'd have to describe. But I really did find it was a little uneven.
That is why these meetings are so valuable. When we, you, the rest of the committee hears these stories.
Yeah.
Because these stories tell us so much. And pastoral care is a huge part of what a rector does.
Absolutely.
It's a huge part. That's part of their duties, is pastoral care. So we have an emphasis on that one.
Speaking of outreach, we have two beautiful greens arrangements from the altar. If anyone knows of someone in need, let me know. I'll wrap them up and send them with you, and you can spread the joy.
I'm so sorry.
If my daughter didn't live so far away, I would take them. With good news. With good news, yeah. Yeah. Please continue. We need this information, and it's good.
Call me at any time, any hour. Really, I'm so grateful for your input. I am sorry for you too. That's the most painful part about the morning.
Haley?
You don't mean it to be. Yeah.
No, I know you don't, but thank you for making us aware.
Yeah.
Yes,
On the
it's
other
good
hand,
teaching.
you know, I don't know what to say, nobody's perfect, but they missed a big thing, and Neil, I know your situation too. I mean, she dropped the ball on that one, there's no question. And it just kept coming for you, Kathy, you know?
Fortunately, I didn't have to look to her for support because I have a wonderful community of love and support.
Oh, good.
But there are people here who don't. And, I mean, that can make a big difference, you know? And fortunately, most of my friends are spiritual, except for a few that aren't. So I got, you know,
I think we all have that.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Let me take a moment to follow up on this point, because I think it's a very important point. If a member of this parish in need of pastoral care and guidance feels that he or she is not getting adequate pastoral care from the rector, whoever that was or is, the person that member should contact is who? The senior warden. The senior warden. If you're not satisfied with whatever it is that you are seeing, feeling, or hearing, whether it's the pastoral care or something else, the senior wardens are bound by the same rules of confidentiality as our priests. We are bound by the same rules canonically. That is why when there is no priest, my name and telephone number is in the bulletin. And I'm the first person to call for pastoral issues. What I'm saying is that is the same thing that applies when we have a rector. When 5 years from now, when I'm not here, you call and deal with the senior warden. Because I wish I'd heard about that. I don't think I was the senior warden at the time, but if somebody had told us.
When you're in the middle of it all, you're in the middle of it all.
I know.
And you don't think, because so many people were so wonderful, and, you know, my wonderful friend Neil and Yuri and the late Janet Hargrave from church, and so many of my wonderful friends. My best friend was at every biopsy, every, you know, doctor's appointment, and my wonderful retired oncologist was on speakerphone with the oncologist, with the radiologist, with everybody. So I'm truly blessed. So I didn't know what I was missing until Rabbi Susan Stone came into my room. You know, I knew how wonderful she was because I knew her from
Right.
working, but I didn't realize it all, John, you know.
And that's why I said what I just said.
Yeah.
You know, when you get to that sense that something is not working as you want it to work, and if it deals with the rector, whoever the priest is, and you're not happy or satisfied or the answers are not adequate, you turn then to the senior warden. Canonically, that's the rule. And don't hesitate to do that,
With
okay?
all respect, I just called the voicemail for church. It says that the church is gonna be closed for 2 weeks over the holidays. It's now March.
Yeah.
And it doesn't provide a backup phone number for emergencies or pastoral care. I don't know what's on the outside of the door. The bulletin board right here still has Bishop Hollingsworth listed as our bishop.
Little housekeeping.
Yeah.
We have a lot of housekeeping to do.
Well, it's Tracy.
Mary's up, we'll be back this next coming week, and I will deal with her about all of that, okay?
I think with all the attributes and issues and wants and needs that we're looking for in a new rector, it seems as though some of us are gonna have to step up a little in not fulfilling a priest's role, but all the ancillary work that goes around some of the initiatives a priest takes on. It's just perfect timing, Lori, you know, that doesn't, I mean, some of us could step up.
There's a lot to step up to do.
Well, then we got a lot of great people here. Not everybody is available weekdays, but there are other ways to give.
Any other thoughts, wishes, suggestions? Let's go to Neil first and then Haley.
Okay, well, I just want to change the subject. One of Mother Ann's strongest points, I think, was being able to preach and speak from her heart and just be so sincere. And I hope we get someone who can speak like that.
Yes, of course. That's our major learning. It's our major learning.
I wish we could convince Father Israel to come out and retire.
Yeah.
I asked him, and he said no.
Haley, it's your turn. I know you've had your hand up a couple of times.
So the thing I would say about what we were just discussing is that we should keep an eye out for each other. That if it's like you said, it's really difficult in the moment to say I need pastoral care. But if I know that you're in recovery, I say, oh, Father Jacob, did you know she hasn't had a visit in a while? And that would be, so we looking out for each other in that way, because it is difficult to say, oh yes, come visit me now. So I just wanted to say that.
That's a good point, though. It's a very good point. Because we all are supposed to be taking care of each other, right? That's what a church community is. We're taking care of each other in every way.
And as far as what qualities I want in a new rector, I visited a church for Ash Wednesday because I go to work in Parma, and I was very happy to hear the inclusive language that the priest used. Mother Ann was very, very traditional, and used very, very traditional language in everything, and they used the inclusive psalter. So there were referring to God in a not as he in every single verse. As far as for my family, it's really important that Madeline doesn't hear your mom and dad, your mom and dad, your mom and dad. I mean, this is what I feel, that we have to be aware that not every child has a mom and dad.
Correct.
And they may have two mothers, or they may have one parent, or they may live with their grandparent. So someone who, when you walk into the church and when you participate in the liturgy and participate in the extracurricular activities, that everyone feels that they're seen and everyone feels that they're included by the minister. And to be honest, I feel that someone who is young would be more likely to come from that point of view.
Yes.
Rather from a more traditional, this is the way it's always been done. Of course, our form says mom and dad when we're writing in our family information. So that's important to me, that people who walk in the door feel welcomed no matter what walk of life, what culture.
That's what our sign says, right?
Right, it is, but it is, and I'm glad, that always, whenever I see the Episcopal Church welcomes me, that makes me feel very happy no matter where I am in the country. But it's important that the language that's used is reflective of our welcome for people from just a diversity of backgrounds.
Have you all noticed that Father Richard is slipping the mothers of the church into the prayers?
Oh, yes.
You notice that?
Yes.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Yeah. Okay. Any other comments, please? Suggestions, worries, concerns, wishes, hopes. What else can we do? Doctor, tell us what you want.
Well, I came to the other meeting, so.
Speak up.
I came to the other meeting, so I kind of already gave my thoughts.
We'll reflect upon that for this group.
Because people listening now.
Yeah.
Well, the best things were the people. I like the events. Those are the pancake breakfast, the 12th night. I thought those were wonderful. The challenges were recruitment. So I mentioned that I live, 5 or 6 doors down, and I, for the longest time, didn't actually realize this was an active church.
A lot of people drive past it and think it's a museum.
Yeah.
No, they do. They do.
Oh, boy.
And then went to look for a new rector. I think my big thing was living here.
Nancy, did you raise your finger?
I'm just gonna say, years ago, I was out painting the front fence, kneeling on the ground, and people came down across the bridge and up the driveway and just said, "When is the museum open?" I opened the door, I said, "Now, anytime, anytime," but that's true. And then I think we expanded the hour sign and all that stuff, so yeah, it does need to look and have, we don't want any neon signs, but visibility of life.
I think a new thought that came up when we were talking about younger families today, has there ever been consideration for just having one mass on Sunday and having like a Saturday late afternoon or evening mass? And would that be helpful?
We've never discussed that. I've raised the question in the past, over the years, do we need to consider changing our schedule of services? That is an issue that I think will be presented to the candidate as our next rector. Here's our schedule, what do you think?
I don't think getting rid of one of the Sunday masses, I don't think you'd necessarily lose anyone. Because
Right.
I think most of us here could come to one or the other if you only had one of them. But you may gain people by adding a Saturday one.
Right. We have to adapt to cultural change.
True.
50 years ago, where is she? Where's Lucy? Lucy left. Well, 50 years ago, the schedule was perfect because all the kids went to the kindergarten and, all the rooms were filled with kids and all that kind of stuff. Things are just so different. My mom did a lot of work around this church because she was a stay-at-home mom, which was what we were 50, 60 years ago, which is not what we are now as a culture. And we have to make accommodation changes. But I think that's up to the input from the next rector. And it's a good question.
If my memory serves me, didn't we used to have 3 services?
We did at one point, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, we did at one point.
We don't now, but we did have 3 services.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a
But we had a much bigger congregation too. I have all the archived bulletins for the last 100 years. And it was 120 people every Sunday. So,
Grace Episcopal on Ridge Road in Willoughby is in an interim, I'm not sure if he's interim
He's
yet.
still interim.
They just dropped to 1 service on Sunday. So it's a reflection of the times, especially, well, we wouldn't be interim anymore, but to your point about all the
Yeah.
change.
all right.
Can I say one more thing?
Oh, Leslie?
I think briefly talked about the idea of the importance of the sermon. To me, that is one of the things that got me coming back to church, because we were married here, my kids were baptized here, and then I didn't come except for the holidays for many, many, many years. And I thought Mother Ann was amazing about tying together the readings with something personal, and she was so beautifully spoken. And Father Richard is just incredible and so well educated, and he's just been. We've been so lucky, I think.
We have been.
But I do think it's very important. I think people are really looking for meaning in the world, and if you're going to try to bring in new people and get them to come on a Sunday and make that commitment, that having them really learn something, to be able to reflect and go out and say, this is why I come, this is what I'm learning about, this is why I'm making the effort, that I think it's really important. And I guess I'm hoping we get to hear somebody, or at least maybe YouTubes of their sermons, but I think that's really important to me.
I think it is. I agree with that. When I preach, my goal is to emulate Ann Kidder, because if you've noticed in paying attention, in the bulletin, we call it a homily. Does anybody know the difference between a homily and a sermon? There is a difference between a homily and a sermon. A homily is basically from the Roman Catholic Church. They call it a homily. And what it is a lecture to tie the readings to the community today. To take the 3 readings and focus on the 3 readings. A sermon, in fact, is from the Protestant side. And it is less involving the readings, the 3 Sunday readings, and more of a rhetorical device to comment upon the life at the present. So there's really a different flavor, and we do, in the Anglican Church, we do a homily, where we focus on the readings and try to teach Christ's word and tie that into the lecture, okay? And I agree, it is very important to me that the homilies, or the sermons, whichever you want, really relate meaningfully our religion and what we're hearing in the lectionary to what we're living in life. We have to have that linkage. Because otherwise, if we're not linked to the lectionary, if we're not linked to the word of the Lord, well, then we are a community club. If you've ever been to a mega church, you need to go sometime just to see. Go to a mega church like Parkside down near Geauga. I've been there with Nancy, and it's magnificent. It's 2,000 or 3,000 people every Sunday. And there's a Starbucks, there's a shopping center, there's play. I'm not kidding you. I mean, there's unbelievable. It's a community center. And I respect that, but it's not my personal style, but I respect it. And that's what young people do. They go to the community center because there's all sorts of game rooms, and they have Starbucks coffee and donuts and fancy pastries and all this other kind of stuff.
Where's this at? In the worship area.
Pardon me?
All the screens in the worship area. The lyrics,
Yeah.
whatever the message is.
And a very good rock and roll band, too. You got to have that. You got to have that.
One more thing.
I guess some people like.
I'm an 8 o'clocker. I'm an early bird, and I've always been that way. But there are a couple times I'm kind of bleary-eyed, and Ann would come down, and I'd kind of nestle in, getting ready, and she had what I call the hook. She would tell me about something that happened to her that week. She would say, no notes, no nothing. And she'd say, when I was walking down the road, walking the dog, this is what I saw. And then all of a sudden she'd pull in both readings and the gospel, and I think, Old Testament, New Testament, how do you do that? But she had me, the hook was, okay, what happened to you last week? I want to know. Because I bet something like that might have happened to me, or I might have thought of something. And that was a real gift to me.
It was a gift, yeah.
But Father Rich, his sermon today was right on the money. I don't know if you listen to the epistle and the gospel. It was perfect, you know, so, you know, I don't know what anybody, when you sit down, you're listening to a homily or a sermon, I don't know what you expect, but over the years, I've learned that canonically, this is what you should do. This is what most priests do. And I don't know where the Protestants got off on that one, but, you know, we're connected to the Bible, we're connected to Christ, and this is what we should be listening to.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be long and drawn out.
No.
You know, I think if you can walk out the door and say, okay, this is what I'm going to try and remember this week. You know, one little message you got out of the whole thing. Not a whole bunch of words, not a whole bunch of adjectives. Not somebody that, and I've listened to that, you know, where they're off in a tangent and I'm going, so what's your point, you know, when I leave? And I don't know if that's a terrible thing to say, but that's coming from here, and I don't know if you might think
That's a
the
good
same
thing
way.
to say.
Yeah.
Because you should know the point when you walk out.
Really. Anyway.
Any other thoughts? Dale?
I think we should continue our tradition here of not, there's a saying about never discuss religion and politics. Of course, we're obviously discuss religion here, but I think we need to continue our long-standing thing of not taking a political position on anything. The reason is with our, especially these days, as divided as our country is, if you do take a position one way or the other, you're going to alienate about half of the people.
True. True. We are a denomination that is based upon scripture, tradition, and reason.
Reason.
And we cannot forget the reason.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think preaching politics is not necessarily reason.
No.
Just my opinion.
Subjective.
Just my opinion. Okay. Ron?
Well, I had written down a kind of summary statement of what we've been talking about, I think to some extent, but there's an element that is significant. I said an effective preacher and thoughtful theologian who effectively brings to his or her leadership the teachings of Christ to the challenges of our world, or at times rather. And I think that's very important, because I don't want to have a lot of stuff about historical biblical things and have to totally stretch it forward on my own without the insights that
Right.
the
Without linkage.
priest should have, yes. So I certainly want someone who is sensitive to the challenges that you bring up and so forth that are particularly current and part of our generation.
Right. It is. Okay. Gosh, I thank you all. I think this has been it's been very insightful for me, and I'm sure for Kitty
Oh, yes.
and Bruce and all of us to share these thoughts.
Very grateful.
So,
And just, if you've got any comments you've written down, just bring them to me and I would be very grateful. And keeping them together, and our search committee will look through them, you know,
and I will post this video on the church website, the YouTube website, so that others can see it who may not have been here. Okay, Bruce? Okay. All right, we're going to sign off. Thank you all.
Thank you, John.